Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, I've been thinking about it ever since our last show, and I don't like it when we agree. So I think we're gonna have to get in some fights on this show. I don't think we're giving the listeners what they want when we're both like, yeah, you're smart, you're good at your job. I think you belong on this podcast. Like that's not what people are here to hear. They don't want to hear us being supportive and agreeable. Like, Tony, you're terrible. I don't know why I put up with your nonsense and why I have for so many years.
Tom, unfortunately, I agree.
Darn it. We are terrible.
We're at an impasse again. So the last show we talked about the Ohio State breakout players on offense. Today, I thought, Tom, let's do it. The breakout players on special teams.
Smart. Yes. I like it. Can we come up with 8 breakout players on special teams? I say yes.
No, instead, let's do defense instead. Let's on the fly, let's scrap the special teams idea. Let's go with our 8 breakout players on defense. I've got 4. Tom has got 4. They may be the same, in which case I have to drop down to my 5th pick, or Tom has to drop down to a 6th or 7th pick. Tom, I went first the last time. I will give you the first pick here if you would like. Breakout players, and again, breakout just meaning you go from a non-starter to a very good starter, or a good starter to an All-American, something that legitimately a legitimate jump has taken place. Tom, your floor.
Tony, I'm just going to read you JT Tuimoloau's stat line from last year, and you tell me if you feel that these are numbers that he might take a significant jump from. You ready? 17 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. Tony, does it feel like JT Tuimoloau might, I don't know, triple those numbers this year? Maybe more? Does it, am I wrong? Does it feel like maybe he's due for a little bit of a step forward, perhaps a bigger role in the team this year?
No, you're not wrong, Tom. I don't know. 50 tackles might be a bit much, but that's not exactly how we're going to be measuring the defensive ends, of course. Yeah, the limited snaps he had last year, the limited knowledge and understanding, the limited time with Larry Johnson, and he still did pretty well. And now everybody just expects him to be unleashed. And even though we know it's foolish to expect that, I don't think anybody feels foolish expecting that. Like, this is true, like, blinders on. We cannot possibly be wrong about this. Nobody possibly could be wrong about this. And we're all full steam ahead on JT Tuimoloau.
I think the important thing that people need to remember about last year was, you remember, he played in the first game. Like, was an immediate kind of impact player for Ohio State last year. And he wasn't, he didn't have massive numbers or anything, but he was on the field immediately, played a consistent role throughout the year. This time last year, he had not committed anywhere. Like everyone else in the country was done and had been done for multiple months. He had not committed. He didn't commit until July? Wasn't it like the 4th of July last year, something like that? And then he doesn't show up in Columbus until practically August, and it may have actually been August. And then a month later, he's on the field at Minnesota and playing in the first game, and it was just like, that's sooner than expected. That's probably a good sign for things long term. And then you kind of saw him throughout the year, and it was just kind of like, oh, that also is probably a good sign for things long term. He just kind of kept. He made the normal freshman year progression without having been there in the spring, without having been there in the summer, without having had the time to work with Coach Mick during the offseason. Now he's actually had a full year. Now it's like, okay, now he's actually, probably reasonably prepared for what he's going to be asked to do this fall. If he did what he did last year, with only having been committed to the team for 2 months and only have been on campus 1 month, what the heck is he going to look like after a full year on campus and a full year in the program and a full year to work with the coaching staff?
He was basically Willie Mays Hayes waking up on the cot on the baseball field and getting up and running and kind of getting into that defensive end rotation. Yeah, the numbers, who knows, but the impact, I think, will be sizable and will be felt. Mickey Marotti said this spring, like the way he came in last year, it's not normal. Don't expect that. Like, nobody expected that. Obviously, everybody expects him to do well, but he exceeded those expectations last year. I guess we will see him exceed the expectations this year, even though it may be impossible because there are some serious expectations.
He's someone who you're probably going to see some unrealistic numbers put on, and and to your point, he's not going to have 50 tackles probably this year.
He may.
But he might. But, triple his sack numbers to 7.5, triple his tackle for loss numbers to 13.5. Like those seem like, that seems well within the realm of possibility. And, 7.5 sacks is like, boy, that would be a good season. I mean, we'll play the game that you played the last time, with 1 being not shocked at all and 10 being completely shocked. If I tell you that JT Tuimoloau has like 11 sacks this year, what's your shock number?
Topping out at 2. It's the ability is there. So if the results follow, we should not be surprised.
Yeah, and there's a lot of variables in there with what is the defensive line rotation going to look like this year, and which positions are going to end up being the big stat number, the stat compilers in a Jim Knowles defense, because it was the Leo position at Oklahoma State, where it was the guy who just had 15 sacks or something ridiculous last year. So there are a lot of sort of unknowns here, but the stuff that we do know is sort of all pointing in the same direction, which is he's probably going to be pretty good this year.
Yeah, and when you look at what the defensive ends have done under Jim Knowles. However, I guess then I will go to my number 3 pick to stay in this line and say Jack Sawyer, who playing that Jack role, not yet the Leo. The Leo requires more time and expertise in the defense. But the leading sacker for Oklahoma State last year, Colin Oliver, a freshman, he was backing up the starter, Brock Martin, who was second on the team with 9 sacks. So together, that position produced 19.5 sacks last year. So Jack Sawyer, I don't have his numbers right in front of me. Because they're almost, to compare them to what he's going to do, it's almost pointless. But everything we just said for JT Tuimoloau, we can say for Jack Sawyer. And Tom, on a scale of 1 to 10, like what would your surprise be if he's got, say, 9.5, 10 sacks this year?
-2, maybe? I don't know. I mean, Colin Oliver, let's just put the little perspective on this. Colin Oliver, who you just gave his stats from last year, as a freshman, he was a class of 2021, just like Jack Sawyer. Colin Oliver was the number 46 linebacker in the country, number 400 player overall, 3-star. That's what Jim Knowles got, what he had to work with at Oklahoma State, and Colin Oliver did just fine, thank you very much, as a true freshman. You would think Jack Sawyer might be just that much quicker, that much faster, that much, that much bendier to get around the corner, all that stuff. Yeah, I think, again, we don't want to put unrealistic expectations on people, but, the number of sacks that you would have to get to before I was like, wow, that was way more than I thought was possible. That number's pretty high.
Like 13, 14?
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting into the Chase Young record kind of level, like, yeah, I mean, that would be, I wouldn't be completely shocked, but yeah, I mean, that would be remarkable, but it also would be like, yeah, I mean, you couldn't say, I didn't think there was any chance this was going to happen. Like, this very much feels like Jim Knowles plus the talent that's on the defense. It's kind of like, I don't know that I want to put a ceiling on it right now. Just like you could see just about anything, and I kind of go, yeah, okay, I can see it. My next one, we're going to stay up front. Leek Williams. Leek Williams, he played last year some. He was the subject of constant, why isn't Leek Williams playing more? Conversations. 16 tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. 4 of those sacks or 3 of those sacks were against Akron. So it's kind of like, okay, you can kind of, if you want to statistically, scale those down a little bit, because Akron is not representative of the teams that are going to be playing the rest of the year. The stuff you've heard about Leek Williams this year was, last year he was really good in short bursts, but he wasn't in condition. He wasn't able to sustain it. Now he's in better shape. Now he's able to sustain it. He was one of the guys who, wasn't he the one who was like one of the fastest guys on the team from like 0 to 10 yards? Like, that is not normal for a human being that size. So it feels like, okay, you're going to go from the, Leek Williams is really impressive, why isn't he playing more, to, Leek Williams is really impressive when he's playing more, And and then you're getting into the all Big Ten kind of conversations, and potentially more than that, even either this year or next.
Yeah, he was very early on my list. Just to correct you, 2 sacks against Akron. However, that Tulsa, Akron, Rutgers, he had 1 sack, 2 sacks, 1 sack. So 4 of his 5 sacks were in that 3-game stretch of complete blowouts. Other than Tulsa was just ugly, but then he did not have another sack until Michigan State. So he went 9 games with just 1 sack, and that was disappointing because everybody was like, we saw it, like he's unstoppable. Like he should be playing more, and he certainly had opportunity, not as many as everybody would have liked, but you figure in those 9 games or whatever, there should have been just more than the 1 sack against Michigan State. I don't know when that game, but that game was like 35-0 before anybody blinked. So Michigan State knew they had to throw the ball. So I think that helped as well.
Slightly less competitive than the Akron game, yes.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm with you. He's definitely on my list. I think we all expect big things from him. It's just a matter of how much is he going to play. You got Teron Vincent there as well, and we'll see if somebody else can step up. It's not as deep a defensive tackle group as it has been in the past, so I think that will help. Also, he was frustrated by not playing last year, and also knows why he didn't play last year. So that is going to be huge in helping him play this year because he knows what held him back. So I think that's a good pick. Yeah, and then my number 2 guy, Tom, is actually, I think I moved him to number 1. Steel Chambers. Here's the thing. I did not have him on my list initially because it's like, he was the started at will last year. Everybody knows him. However, when you look at what Malcolm Rodriguez did at Oklahoma State last year, the starting will linebacker for Jim Knowles last year, and I know we have to go back and compare everybody to what Jim Knowles did, but Steel Chambers last year with 47 tackles. And, that was most towards the second half of the season. I don't think it's outrageous to think he doubles those numbers. Tackles for loss, what did he have? Let me see here. He had 5. I think doubling that is well within reach. 1 sack last year. And so when you think 47 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, and compare that to the position that he is now playing in this defense, and look at what Malcolm Rodriguez did with it at Oklahoma State. Last year, Malcolm Rodriguez with 131 tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. There's not going to be probably as much reason for Steel Chambers to have 131 tackles. Like there's going to be some blowouts on this schedule, but like 100 tackles should not be out of reach. And I'm looking forward to seeing how Jim Knowles unleashes an athlete like Steel Chambers, because he may choose to really create some Darren Lee type of havoc, a different position. I won't go as far to say Ryan Shazier, because that was, Ryan Shazier had like 23.5 tackles for loss in 2012 or 13 or whatever. But I think you're going to see some playmaking from Steel Chambers this year. That's why I moved him from not on my list to number 1.
Yeah, he was next on my list. And, I feel like you could take a lot of the stuff I said about JT Tuimoloau and just apply it to Steel Chambers, where instead of not being committed to Ohio State, Steel Chambers was literally not on defense until last summer. We saw him at camp last summer. This time last year, we saw him at camp and he was sort of sometimes with Al Washington and was just kind of like, and but they hadn't officially made any kind of a move yet. And, then he ended up on defense and then ended up being one of the best players on defense. And that was not a fantastic linebacker unit by any means, but he was, he went from not on defense to maybe the best linebacker on the team in the span of a couple months. So, okay, now he's got more time. He's actually has time to really do things, go through a full spring, learn the playbook, learn the system, in a more, without having the deadline of a season coming up real soon, but also potentially be in a position to be maybe a more organized defense this year, maybe a little bit more structured system on defense this year. It feels like everything is set up for him between the experience and also just the defense on the whole for Steel Chambers to have a real nice second year as a linebacker. So yes, he's a good pick. My next one, this feels borderline irresponsible. This is someone who was a first team All Big Ten last year in his true freshman season. So, I mean, you're asking a lot to break out from that level, but it feels like Denzel Burke, there's probably another level there, because that's what he was as a true freshman. Thorpe Award finalist kind of conversation. I'm not saying win the Thorpe Award, but, somewhere on one of the All-American teams maybe, somewhere in that Thorpe Award conversation. It just feels like, again, last year's defense was such a mess at every level, and he was really good in a defense that was a mess an awful lot of other places. How much better can he be this year in a defense that is probably not going to be a mess? How much better can he be with another year of spring ball and summer camp and all that kind of stuff? It feels like the sky is the limit there with Denzel Burke. And, again, like, first team All Big Ten as a true freshman is already like, okay, that's just stupid. Now to pick him to go another level beyond that, like, it's a little reckless, but also it feels like there's even more there that we're going to get to see this fall.
I'm quite angry because I did not have Denzel Burke on my list, because we just have him like on this pedestal because of how we got to watch him, play. And you say first team All Big Ten. He was third team by the coaches and honorable mention by the media. And I'm really kicking myself because I how many guys honorable mention, third team, second team did I pick from the offense that I would expect to be All-Americans this year? And I think Denzel Burke now is a known quantity. People know his name. And so he's going to be on an All-American list, and I'm sure he may have shown up in some All Big Ten, last year on some notes, and all freshman teams certainly like that. But that's a very good pick, because I've already put him up there, but I guess I didn't actually put him up there on my spreadsheet. So that's on me. That's my fault.
And I'm going to blame the Google. I started to talk about. I'm never good with remembering who is which All Big Ten team. So I Googled very quickly Denzel Burke All Big Ten, and the preview comes back to an article from Cleveland.com, which says the preview text says Ohio State's football's only first team All Big Ten selection was freshman cornerback Denzel Burke. When you actually click on it and read the article, it says it was Haskell Garrett, but Google has led me astray. So cool, thanks Google. That was not any of our friends at Cleveland.com. That was Google. So that's on me apparently for not actually clicking through and just believing something I read on the internet. Abraham Lincoln said I shouldn't do it, and I did it anyway, and that's on me.
Lay Maurice. So no, that's a good one. That fits the criteria for sure. My next one, I'll stay in the secondary. I'll go with Josh Proctor.
He was on my list as well. Yep.
Safety-driven defense. This is a guy who has been waiting, battled through injuries, left both games last year because of injury, and then of course never came back from the second one. Size, athleticism has always been there. Really good spirits, happy-go-lucky guy who has been through some things, and just with the possibilities of this defense. And I think strong safety, that boundary safety position, suits him well. I have some concerns about how much the field safety suits Ronnie Hickman, but I think Josh Proctor this year is he'll have some big hits, which everybody likes. I think there'll be some opportunities for him to get into the backfield, which people like as well. I think there are going to be some good moments for Josh Proctor, and he was actually my number 4 pick overall on this list.
Yeah, I had him on my list as well. I think he's someone who he's a little like Julian Fleming, where it's like you've heard about him so long and they've liked him for so long, and you've just kind of had injuries. Last year it was the broken leg for him, but you have never quite gotten to see him have the opportunities that you expected to just because of injuries. So Yeah, I think he's a very good pick there. I had him 6th on my list. 5th is kind of a tie between two guys, and you can either pick one of these guys, or because they're two guys who are kind of very much in the same boat and very much linked in my mind, and that's J.K. Johnson and Jordan Hancock at the corner position. And it's like one of these guys is going to be a breakout star. Possibly both of these guys are going to be breakout stars this year. Some of that's going to depend on, what is the structure of the defense? How often are they playing three corners? Probably not very often. How often are they rotating three corners? I guess a better way to say that. Is Cam Brown able to stay healthy this year? If Cam Brown's not able to stay healthy, well, there's more snaps for one or both of those guys. But those are second-year players, and it's like, well, they're so new, and you can't really expect too much. Like, well, Denzel Burke's a second-year player. We just had that whole conversation. So, and Hancock and Johnson, I think, got a little bit forgotten last year because there were other guys on the depth chart ahead of him. All those other guys ahead of him on the depth chart have all left. Ryan Watts is gone. Legend Cavazos is gone. It's like, I think some of that may have been reading the room, and the guys coming up behind them were pretty darn good, and playing time may not have been super accessible to those guys at Ohio State. So it feels like one or both of those guys are going to be really significant players. J.K. Johnson basically didn't play last year. I think he played one snap and then got hurt. Jordan Hancock played just a handful of games. He redshirted as well. But you saw him in the second half against Akron, the second half against Rutgers, games like that were, well and truly over very early. Both of those guys seem like they're going to go from basically non-factors on the team last year to at least significant contributors this year.
Jordan Hancock was my number 6 player overall, right behind Leek Williams. I think there is room for a third corner. We saw him make some plays in the spring, an aggressive kind of guy, good size, confident, got to play a little bit last year, got to go through this spring and grow. And I'm with you. There's questions. How much will Cam Brown be out there? He's dealt with injuries throughout his career, so that's a concern. I think the Cam Brown situation then decides is it Jordan Hancock and J.K. Johnson, or is it just one or the other? And you're certainly not wishing anything on Cam Brown, but they have some guys who are ready to, I don't want to say ready to step up, but who are ready to be found out, that sort of thing. Like, you'll find out if J.K. Johnson can handle it pretty quickly. And Jordan Hancock, I like that one as my 6th guy. And really, that was the last of all the ones I feel really good about. And so then the next one that I'm thinking about, my last pick here, I believe, I don't, it's a decision somewhere on the defensive line, because I would say Tommy Eichenberg, but Cody Simon started more games last year. We don't know what's going on there at middle linebacker. So that for me is still a concern in terms of determining the breakout. And then to go Mike Hall, he might be the 3rd nose tackle. He's one of 3 nose tackles. So that's how can you really break out if you're one of 3 nose tackles? But the problem is, like, Ty Hamilton is also on my list here. So do they cancel out? And then does that just leave me with Tyler Friday? In his last season as an Ohio State defensive end, his 5th season, lost last year. That was supposed to be his NFL year. That was the contract year, as we say, and he had that taken away. Now he comes back this year, still a lot of defensive ends, but that's the way it's always going to be at Ohio State. So if you're good enough, you'll play. He has some versatility. I think he can slide inside on passing downs, which he is fine with doing. So I think there's going to be some opportunities for Tyler Friday to really become when he's been healthy, the coaches love him and they play him. Just hasn't been healthy for almost his entire career. So if he's healthy, I think he certainly will fit the definition of breaking out, because he will play. He should. It's just the Tyreek Smith thing of just the split second that you're not quite there has also been part of his problem as well. And that was something that Jim Knowles has tried to find, that split second for everybody. So I think I'm going Tyler Friday here because the nose tackles cancel each other out. I don't know what's happening at middle linebacker, so I don't want to say this is my default decision, but I'm deciding this by default.
All right. Before I get to my response to that, I don't know if I said that Jordan Hancock what redshirted last year. He played in 7 games. He did not redshirt last year. I don't know if I thought that in my head or actually said that out loud, but Jordan Hancock did not redshirt last year. So there you go. Spare us all your angry letters on Jordan Hancock's redshirt status. Boy, I am floored that your answer was not Zach Harrison. I thought for sure you were going to say Zach Harrison here, because Zach Harrison was the next guy on my list, and he is. I think first of all, I think Tyler Friday is a great pick because the ability is there. You've seen it over the years. He was hurt last year. I think he missed time in 2020 as well. I mean, he has not been able to stay healthy and on the field. If you're on the field this year, and last I heard he was on track to be good to go for the fall. Yes, this is a contract year. This is maybe at least maybe he's in that Tyreek Smith kind of level from last year, 26 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. Like if you told me that was Tyler Friday's numbers, like I think that's, I would not be remotely surprised if it was that, or even maybe a little more than that. Zach Harrison, 34 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 4 sacks last year. I mean, Zach Harrison doubles the number of sacks from 4 to 8. That would first of all count to me as a pretty significant breakout. What's your level of surprise? Again, 1 to 10. Zach Harrison, 8 sacks. That seems like that's about a 0.02 for me if he doubles that number.
Well, for me, it's probably at about a 6 or so. The ability is there. The athletic ability is there, but we have not. We keep waiting for it. And one of the things that kept him off my list is if he's the strong side defensive end, that might also create some issues. And just looking back at what the strong side defensive ends have done, did last year at Oklahoma State, which is this model that is unrealistic, 3.5 sacks for the starter. Certainly he didn't have the athleticism and the athletic ability and all of the opportunities to rush the passer that Zach Harrison will have. But when you said it, that was another one with Denzel Burke, where it's like I've kind of already pushed those guys aside, and that's my own fault. But Zach Harrison should break out. But I'm to the point where I'm not necessarily tired of waiting, but I'll see it first, basically.
And that's fair. And the other question there is, JT Tuimoloau is probably the other guy at the strong side defensive end, and was Tyler Friday also in that conversation? So how many snaps is Zach Harrison going to get? Zach Harrison just seems like someone who is due to break out, and will it happen? Maybe, maybe not. I would not be at all surprised if it did happen this year. I mean, there's a reason I didn't lead with him here, but I was surprised to not hear his. I thought for sure he would be your last answer there, but he and Tyler Friday, it feels like one of those guys is probably going to have a pretty good season, and you're running into a number of snaps issue, because if JT Tuimoloau is going to be your big breakout star on defense, those two other guys, when they're on the field, JT Tuimoloau is probably coming off the field. Potentially, we'll see. Who knows what they're going to run out with this year? Are we going to see the Rushman package again this year, or is that going to go away with Knowles? I mean, there's a lot of interesting and somewhat unanswered questions, I think, at this point. But I think we've now picked three separate strong side defensive ends. I think at least 2 of those guys are going to be pretty significant jumps this year.
I think for me, I'm going to do Zach Harrison a favor by not putting anything else on him. Like I'm going to stay out of it and let this happen organically. So Tom, that will then do it for this episode. Want to thank everybody for tuning in. Those are your 8 breakout Buckeyes on defense. Nobody else. Sorry to tell you, nobody else is going to do anything worth note. So hopefully those 8 guys will do enough for everybody, and hopefully you enjoy the season, because that's it. That's all that there's going to be. So thank you for tuning in as always, and we will talk to you guys later.